Hi people, it's me Anja, my pronouns all she and her, and welcome back to my channel for my February TBR. The first book on this list is called The Wish Ring Cipher. This story is a middle-grade contemporary mystery that might contain some magical fantastic elements too, but basically it follows a young main character who is autistic and she's navigating her newest autism diagnosis as well as navigating 7th grade at a new school. And basically she loves solving like codes and puzzles. So I'll bet that she's approaching this new school situation like a puzzle, which I think is so fascinating and so cool. And as an autistic person myself, I'll bet that she will feel so relatable and so familiar. And second of all, I trust this author so much because I've read so many books by her in the past. And I think that all of her books previously have been purely fantasies. So I think that this is her first book with a contemporary setting. Anyway, with that said, this book comes out February 3rd. So I think it's out already by the time that you're watching this video. I don't know, I'm pre-filming this video on January 16th. So I'm not quite sure exactly when this video comes out. But anyway, with that said, I'm so excited to read this book. And I know that it's going to be so good. So with that said, I'm really excited to read it. The next book on this list is called A Skull Like a Liver. This story is a middle grade contemporary that comes out February 3rd, 2026, and it follows a young main character who's navigating trauma after, I believe, the person who caused her trauma passes away, which is a really fascinating concept because people always say that you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but like sometimes you can, or sometimes you should, because sometimes dead people like do bad things. You know what I mean? Anyway, and just because they can't defend themselves anymore because they're dead doesn't excuse or justify the fact that they did do those bad things. Anyway, I'm so excited to read this book because I've read a multitude of books by this author, again, possibly all of them, and it's been a really long time since she's written anything recently, I think. But anyway, with that said, I truly trust her reputation so much. I remember in the past, I would love her books so much. I would love her characters and the plot and the setting and the family dynamics. And truly, even though it's been like 8 years or something since I've read anything by her, I still trust her. So anyway, with that said, I'm so excited to read this book. I know it's going to be so emotional and so well done. So with that said, this book comes out February 3rd, and I'm really excited to read it. The next book on this list is called The No-Whale Beast. This story is a middle-grade fantasy sequel, and it comes out February 10th. The first book in this series was so good, and it was so wonderful. I loved the queer normative world, the characters, the world building. I loved the concept of like a main character feeling isolated because she is seeing fantastical things that nobody else can see, and so she gets whisked away to like a magical school, which I think is so cool because I've always loved magical academic school settings. I think it's because I grew up with Harry Potter, which obviously I never talk about anymore. But anyway, this book was so good and it was so fantastic. I'm actually not sure if the main character identifies as sapphic or not. I don't want to make any hasty assumptions just because she lives in a queer normative world. But anyway, I'm so excited to dive back into this world again with these characters and the friendships and the world building and the setting and the magic and everything. And yeah, I love reading middle grade fantasy, as we all know, so I have super high hopes for this sequel. So with that said, this book comes out February 10th. The next book on this list is called The Sun and the Starmaker. This book comes out February 17th, and it's a YA fantasy following a young main character who's being swept away by the person who creates sunlight for her icy village every morning. And she's only heard of him before in like fairy tales and stuff. So she never thought that she would actually meet him, which gives me the impression that she didn't think that he was actually real, which I think will be so fascinating. And I've read multiple books by this author before. I don't know why I'm saying this as if I haven't read all of Rachel's books in the past. And 2 of them I rated 4 out of 5 stars. And the second one I rated 3 stars, I think. But anyway, overall, I'm really excited for this book because Rachel in the past has always crafted such unique YA fantasies, which is rare for me because as someone who's read YA fantasy since literally, I don't know, 2016, for the past 10 years basically, and more, like, I've read so many that, like, it's hard to find one that doesn't sound like every other YA fantasy that I've already read. So anyway, with that said, I'm so excited to read this book. It sounds so cool and so unique and so fascinating. So with that said, I'm really looking forward to it. The last book on this list, and hopefully not the least, is called Daughter of the Cursed Kingdom. This book comes out February 24th, and it's a YA sapphic fantasy sequel. And I read the first book in this series a few months ago, and it was so good and so fantastic. And I'm assuming by the cover that this book is mostly set in the perspective of the person who was the love interest from the first book, and then it will alternate between chapters of the narrator of the first book, if that makes any sense. Because the first book, like, the character on the cover, like, told the story for about, I would say, 70% of the book, and then the other 30% was in her love interest, whom I'm assuming is on the cover of this book. So I'm assuming in this sequel, their perspectives will be switched, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm just so excited to dive back into this world with these characters and see how they are established as a sapphic couple. Like, I'm loving this queer normative world again. Like, I love the setting and the politics and the plot and the pacing and everything. I'm so excited to dive back into this world again. So anyway, with that said, this book comes out February 24th, and I'm so excited to read it. So in conclusion, I'm quite a picky reader, if you haven't noticed already. So that's why my February TBR is shorter than even I anticipated, because originally there were 3 more books on this list, but then I looked closer at them and I realized that I don't actually have high hopes for them, if that makes any sense. I might be surprised, of course, but anyway, basically, these are the new releases that will be coming out in February 2026 that I have 4-star expectations for. So anyway, in conclusion, if you enjoy this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the bail emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!